Colombian Defense Minister Diego Molano revealed that a Colombian intelligence report showed the prominent military, technical, and political assistance that Russia, the Kremlin, has been providing to the Venezuelan regime lately. The report essentially shows that Russia has assisted Venezuela in mobilizing troops to the border with Colombia in a move that could definitely spark an armed conflict between Venezuela and Colombia. This troops mobilization has been made to the Apure region, which is one of the Venezuelan border, which is next to Colombia's Araucas region, where the FARC and ELN, these two Marxist guerrilla, have been dealing with a pretty brutal armed conflict over the last few days, just as we have been reporting here on Newsweek. This clash between the FARC and ELN, given the fact that on this region, this region is actually extremely strategic to the drug trafficking operations, being the reason why both factions are clashing at this moment. In addition to these delicate details, the report also revealed Russian espionage in Bogota, which is the capital of Colombia. Russian espionage in Colombia, along with Venezuelan spies. We're talking about members of the Russian government in conversations with spies from the Maduro regime who are here in Colombia, preparing different types of operations. According to the report, this case of espionage was allegedly made during the time of the widespread protest here in Colombia, with the goal of financing the riots. We need to remember that these widespread protests were actually quite violent. However, there was a faction which was the most violent, which was called Primera Línea, first line. This faction basically became into a pretty interesting organization where people, the most radical left-wing members of this protest, because we need to remember that this protest basically combined a lot of political factions, but the extreme left faction of this protest was mainly the people who composed this first line, and they were essentially living in different parts of Bogota where they were preparing different types of tactics against the police in order to fight the police, in order to clash against the police. So, according to this report, this espionage was mainly made to finance this first line in order, of course, to destabilize the Colombian government. So, on the other hand, right after this intelligence report, the Biden administration's Undersecretary of State, Victoria Nuland, said during a press conference that Russia could be planning to sabotage the upcoming legislative and presidential elections here in Colombia, such as it has already made in many other countries, including the United States. Of course, this is not exactly a surprise, especially if we take into consideration the fact that Russia is a pro-US government, and the fact, Colombia is a pro-US government, and the fact that this country, Colombia, is next to Venezuela, which is the main ally of Moscow on this region, here on South America. So, it is an undeniable fact that Russia is currently seeing Colombia as a geopolitical goal to achieve. Right now, in this country, Russia is essentially preparing another episode of the classic Cold War clash against the US, because the only reason why Russia could be quite interested in Colombia is basically because of the fact that Colombia has always been the main ally of the US in this region, and the neighbor country of Colombia is the main ally of Russia on this region. So we're talking about a pretty interesting geopolitical scenario in which, once again, Russia will try to sabotage our democracy in order, essentially, to hit the U.S. in a geopolitical manner. Reporting from Medellin, Colombia, Luis Orozco, Newsweek.